everyone. So I'm actually not going to show myself today because I'm feeling a little rough. I've had a really long and busy week, but I still wanted to hop on and put together a quick video all about solo travel, in particular safety tips for solo female travelers, because I know that traveling alone can be really scary, especially for people who've never traveled by themselves before. So these are just a couple of the safety tips that I always have in my back pocket, even though I've traveled alone many, many times, and I really hope that they help you too. First and foremost, you want to figure out where it is that you want to go. Common sense, right? So definitely look into the crime rate of your dream destination. There are many, many, many possibilities out there for a solo trip, obviously, but you definitely want to, especially as a new solo traveler, consider the crime rate and go somewhere that's a little bit easier. Now, I'm not saying the entire world is unsafe, that would be ridiculous, but definitely research your destination thoroughly before you make any commitments. I know your heart may be set on a certain city or a certain country, but depending on how much you've traveled alone, you may want to find somewhere easier to start with. That you have a destination picked out, you're going to have to put together an itinerary. And some safety tips for an itinerary would be to reach out to friends and family who may have already gone to this destination. Maybe they have some great recommendations for you. And you'll also want to look into other solo female travelers who have been to the same place as you have. So Facebook groups are really good for this. There's also a lot of solo female travel bloggers. I'm one of them, shameless plug, who've been to destinations alone and can provide some insights, particularly to that experience. So the internet is a wonderful, wonderful resource for this sort of thing. So reach out to other solo female travelers who have been to that city, who've been to that country, and get information that way, because truly the solo female travel experience is different from other types of travel, and you need to be aware of that in advance. The next safety tip that I have is to notify friends and family about your travels. I know that this sounds kind of sort of lame, I get it, but the reality is it's always super important to have people aware of where you're at and where you're staying. So what I always do is I put together a loose itinerary and share it with my family members and a couple friends so they have an idea of where I'm going to be on any given date. And I actually still do this even if I'm traveling with friends. So it's just like a good rule of thumb. Furthermore, if you're a U.S. citizen, you can take advantage of the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program with the U.S. State Department, and this allows you to notify the embassy of your upcoming travels so that if there's anything important that you need to know, such as a protest or a natural disaster, they can notify you. I'm not sure if other countries have a similar program in place, but it's totally worth checking out. Another important way to stay safe as a solo female traveler, or really any traveler, is to have travel insurance. Now, just a word of warning, I know a lot of credit cards include travel insurance, especially the higher end travel credit cards such as the Chase Sapphire Reserve. But a lot of the times these credit cards only include, say, delay reimbursement or trip cancellation insurance. They don't really include the medical aspect. So always make sure that you have medical coverage, especially if you're going to be doing hiking in a remote area, because let me tell you, if you have to get airlifted back home, that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the very last thing you need to be hit with is a ginormous medical bill on your solo trip. So double check the travel insurance with your travel credit card, and if it is not included, make sure that you buy additional medical insurance. I know I'm sounding emphatic here, but seriously, the last thing I would like to see happen is for somebody to get hit with a medical bill overseas. So, with all that being said, along with your plane ticket, your biggest expense is going to be accommodation. Particularly as a solo traveler, it can get very expensive, especially if you're looking at hotels that just offer double rooms. So, my advice is when finding accommodation, specifically go through reviews written by solo female travelers. I know a lot of solo travelers take advantage of hostels because they're a little bit more affordable. And I do think that hostelworld.com lets you sort reviews by age group and maybe by gender. So you can definitely definitely see what other solo female travelers have to say about a specific place. I think you can also do the same thing for hotels if you're diligent, but go into those reviews and read about them because, like I said, the solo female travel experience is very different than other types of travel. And if you have a lot of solo female travelers really talking about how much they loved a particular hotel or a bed and breakfast or hostel, that could very much be worth looking into. So, next, I want to address solo travel and alcohol because if you're in France, you're going to want to try the wine. If you're in Germany, you're going to want to try the beer. However, alcohol does limit your ability to be aware of your surroundings. Now, I promise I'm not saying that drinking is an excuse for people to take advantage of you. I think we all know that that is victim blaming and completely wrong. However, it is a pretty good idea to limit the amount of alcohol that you're consuming just to take care of yourself and to stay aware of your surroundings. Another thing you can also do is join an organized pub crawl because that way you have safety in numbers and you can enjoy a night out a little bit more. Speaking of nights out, I'm not the sort of person who is totally against going out at night alone. My only piece of advice is to do your research ahead of time. For example, if you want to do a really cool ghost tour after dark, in that case, there's safety in numbers and going out at night is perfectly fine. There are also neighborhoods that are really crowded even at night. My rule of thumb is if there's a lot of people around, being out at night is perfectly fine. However, if you are planning on coming back late at night and you don't feel comfortable and it's very desolate, then you're much better off getting a cab back to your accommodation. But just use common sense when it comes to going out at night, but don't discount it completely because I know a lot of people are very hesitant to go out at night alone, but it can be just as safe as going around during the day if you do your research and are prepared. Another safety tip has to do with pickpocketing because, in all honesty, you're far more likely to be scammed or have a pickpocketer take your stuff than to fall victim of a violent crime. At least this is the case in my experience, having traveled around Europe a lot by myself. So, my personal advice is to keep your belongings in a bag that's not easy to get into. Like, if you have this big open straw bag or you have a backpack that you're not paying attention to and you just have like your wallet right there on top, then you're just asking for a pickpocket to reach right in and to take whatever you have and to go on their merry way. So what I always do is I have a crossbody bag that I keep up front close to my body, and I also try to make sure that the actual pocketbook portion is not facing the street so no one can come right by on a moped and snatch it right off. Furthermore, I always keep a copy of my passport in my suitcase and have at least one credit card stowed deep in my suitcase. So, if God forbid I do lose my credit card or passport while I'm out, I do have those extra documents to keep me financially safe when I'm overseas. Furthermore, this also extends to money. If you go to the ATM, maybe don't take all of the cash out with you during today. Try to keep some of it back at the safe or in your accommodation so you don't lose all your money if worst comes to worst. Another important aspect of solo female travel has to do with your physical health. Honestly, in your purse or your bag, you should always have basic medication with you, such as Benadryl if you have an allergic reaction to some of the delicious food out there, because we all know one of the best parts of traveling is eating. So, always just have some basic medical supplies with you. And this is even more important if you happen to get sick on a Sunday and all the pharmacies are closed. It can happen. So make sure to have those medicines to take with you in advance. Furthermore, if you're on any prescription medication, always check the legality of your medication in the country that you're visiting. For example, Japan has really strict laws about what drugs you can bring into Japan. So you do need to do that research ahead of time to make sure that your medication is fully legal to have in the destination of your choice. And ladies, this preparation extends to period products because believe me, the products in other countries may not always be what you're used to. And in some countries, tampons are actually impossible to find. So bring your own supplies with you. I cannot stress this enough. Last but certainly not least, and even though it's not necessarily a safety tip, I still think it's worth addressing. I know that solo travel for some people can be extremely lonely. So, my personal advice is if it's your first solo trip, there's nothing wrong with booking a fully guided tour. My very first solo trip to Scotland, I actually booked a group tour. With Haggis Adventures, and it took us all over the islands, and I got to meet a lot of fantastic people, and it was the perfect starting off point to my solo travel adventures. However, if you also want to just like book your own thing, you can also schedule free walking tours, food tours into your itinerary, and I find that these group activities really help with meeting other people. Personally, I adore food tours for meeting others. I really find that there's something about eating good food with strangers that causes friendships to form, and I've actually lost track of how many times I've made good friends on tours like this. So, yeah, definitely book some guided tours during your solo trip to avoid loneliness. So I really hope this video helped you, at least with some basic travel safety tips as a solo female traveler. Again, I totally get that every city and every country is different. I will certainly try to have some country and city specific videos up for you all in the near future. But in the meantime, have fun planning your solo travels, and I'll see you all in the next one. Hopefully, I'll actually be present in the next one too. Just today, I was feeling so tired and didn't look all that awesome, but next time I'll feature myself in the video too. So take care, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you all soon. Happy travels.